Now, one of the things that the people that like to speak against the Torah like to spot that is in their eyes, controversial, is that the Torah says certain things about Gentiles that they obviously don't understand, but they look like the Torah is very negative towards non-Jews. Now, of course, this is not true, because if a person actually learned enough Torah, they'd see that there are certain statements in the Gemara that tell us that we have to be very careful when we treat non-Jews, much more even than Jews. If a Jew steals from another Jew, then it's a sin of stealing. But if a Jew steals from a non-Jew, like they're doing in cash advance business, with all this high interest and stuff like that, that's not only stealing, but it's also Chilul Hashem. So in essence, the sin of stealing against non-Jews is bigger, because it desecrates the name of God. At the same token, it says that if a non-Jew learns the parts of the Torah that they're permitted to learn, they're considered as if they are a Kohen Gadol. It's fantastic. It's amazing. The problem is that if this non-Jew does not have a teacher that they listen to, and they just listen to themselves, they're not going to stop at what they're allowed to. They're going to start delving into the things that they're not allowed to. And there lies the problem. Why? The Gemara in Masechet Megillah says that Chokhmah bagoyim ta'amin, Torah bagoyim al ta'amin. Wisdom among the Gentiles, believe. Torah among the Gentiles, don't believe. Now, of course, this is one of the statements that the people that are unlearned find controversial. So what do you mean? You say that we have wisdom, but we can't learn Torah? There are some non-Jews that know the entire Tanakh by heart, or at least they think they do. Or even if they do. So how can you possibly say they don't know Torah? The same token, the Rashbam comments on Masechet Yevamot, page 103. And he says that at Mount Sinai, last week's parasha, Parashat Yitro, Am Yisrael that had the Zohama of the serpent in them, that Zohama was removed from them at Mount Sinai. The Gentiles, on the other hand, that weren't at Mount Sinai, that Zohama is still in them. Zohama can translate to spiritual filth. It can translate to impurity. Whatever you want to translate it to, we know it's Zohama. There's no perfect translation to it. Now, a person, again, reads this in itself independently, say, oh, so that's not fair. What? Because we're in Mount Sinai? What? Because I'm a Gentile, therefore I can't have Torah? That's racism. No, it's not racism. There's nothing racist about it. And there's plenty of other statements that you can pick and choose in a Talmud that you can say, oh, look, it's not good, it's not nice to Gentiles. No. What you're not understanding is this. The Rashbam is saying, why did we lose? Why did we lose this Zohama? Because we went to Mount Sinai. At Mount Sinai, what did we have? The Torah became a part of us. Just like the Gemara in Masechet Sukkah and Masechet Kiddushin says, if the Satan comes to you and attacks you, take him to the Bet Midrash. If he is a stone, he'll crumble. If he's a piece of metal, he'll blow up. Meaning that it wasn't us, per se, but the power of Torah that we now acquired that removed this Zohama, that removed the Satan from us. This did not happen to the Gentiles. Which means that if a Jew learns Torah now, that Torah can have a much bigger impact on him, to the point where that Torah will refine his character after a period of time, whether he intends it or doesn't intend it. So long as he remains committed to the Torah and doesn't sin and bring the Zohama on himself, brings the sin on himself, just by simply remaining pure and learning Torah, he will become more purified, more holy, and a better person in itself. But if he brings the sins upon himself, the Torah itself is not going to be enough because he's bringing that on himself. On the other hand, when a Gentile learns Torah, yes, he can learn a lot of things that are spiritually uplifting, intellectually stimulating. It could influence him and motivate him to change his behavior, to be nicer to his wife, to be more generous with his kids, and so on and so forth. But because he still has that Zohama in him, the Torah itself is not going to be enough to get him to overcome all of these spiritual obstacles, all of these character trait flaws, where if the Satan comes to and attacks him, where it's a beautiful girl, or a boy, or it's money, or it's this, even if he learned Torah for 10, 20 years, he doesn't have the same tools to defend himself because that Zohama is still in him. And therefore, he could lose everything he gained in a single act. Whereas a Jew could also lose, but his loss usually is gradual and unfortunately could be much worse in the outcome. But it's usually gradual. It's not something that one day he's the biggest and the next day he's a kofer gamur. It doesn't usually happen that way. It's usually a gradual. The Gentile, on the other hand, could literally go from somebody that learns and does good things, the next day he's an anti-Semite, hates the Torah, makes fun of it. Why? Because again, the spiritual defense mechanism that the Jew has acquired by being at Mount Sinai, and if somebody converts, they're in essence acquiring that also, is going to be much stronger. So it's not an insult by saying that the Jew that learns Torah has Torah, whereas the Gentile learns Torah, doesn't have Torah. He may have knowledge, but the Torah hasn't become a part of him like it does for the Jew. And we've seen examples of this where we have the Bilam knew who God was, but it wasn't enough to change his behavior. We have Eliezer, Eved Avraham. Some Midrashim say that he turned into a Rasha. Of course, other Midrashim say that he was a righteous person for his whole life. But the point being is that there was somebody that was connected to Avraham that was very, very righteous, whether it's Eliezer or it's somebody else, that left it all and became an enemy of Am Yisrael for generations. How? Simple. The Torah did not become part of him. He understood it, he saw it, but he did not live it. This is also part of the reason of why I tell people that if you're able to convert to Judaism, do whatever it takes to do it. Because the benefit may not seem so great when you're still not Jewish. Because in essence, what you're seeing is, listen, I'm learning now. I'm celebrating the holidays already, so why do I need to push myself? Whenever it happens, it happens. No, if you can push yourself, push yourself. Because whatever you got to before conversion is nothing in comparison to what you'll be able to get to within the first 5 years after conversion. And trust me, I've dealt with enough converts to know this for a fact. So, the spiritual tools that you have as a Jew are a world of difference than what you have as a Gentile. Now, this doesn't mean that all Gentiles are bad or all of these other statements that people like to make to say. But the fact that Hashem chose Am Yisrael and they accepted the Torah at Mount Sinai, it's a part of everybody's religion, whether you're a Christian or you're a Jew or you're a Muslim. Everybody knows Am Yisrael was chosen at Mount Sinai. They were the people. They received the Torah. Hashem made a statement that he will never change a nation, despite what anybody will tell you after. That's the reality. That gave them a certain spiritual power you could also acquire for yourself if you become part of Am Yisrael. Now, everything we've said until now, until this last segment, about the spiritual tools, improving yourself, you can apply all of that to whether you're a Jew or a Gentile. But the most potent effect, a most extraordinary effect, will be on the most potent neshama. Meaning that if you are a Gentile, using everything we said in this shiur and everything others before it, will have a certain impact on you. Certainly benefit, certainly better, certainly amazing. But always remember that you have to work extra hard just to maintain it. And you have to work extra hard not to lose it. On the other hand, the Jews, that impact, by doing all of this, will have an extraordinary effect on your life. You have to be very careful not to go on a road of mistakes and leniencies and all types of skipping this and skipping that, because if you fall, chas v'shalom, you'll end up being worse than everybody else in creation, including the worst Gentiles that ever lived. Why? The Pasuk says, the conquerors, your destroyers, come from within you. The worst enemies of Am Yisrael throughout all of history have been Jews. Meaning, we are our own worst enemies. Yes, certainly the Babylonians and the Egyptians and the Assyrians and the Romans and the Greeks, and they all were used to attack us. And the Nazis, yes, they're all evil, they're all bad, blah, blah, blah. But why did Hashem allow them to do all that stuff? Because we did certain things. And guess what? Some of the tools he used in this world were Jews that left the tradition, Jews that left the Torah and joined the enemy. Hence the reason why there were Jews that joined Paro, Datan ve'Aviram, caused Paro, influenced them to chase after Am Yisrael. Jews helped Nazi Germany fight against their own brothers. 150,000 of them were in the Nazi army. They were killing their own brothers. How could such a thing be? The Greeks had a bunch of Jews join them. How could that be? Because if we are not careful about our own spiritual status, that extra elevated status that we can attain because of Mount Sinai, that the Gentile can't attain, also has an extra level of downside that makes us worse than everybody else out there. If we don't attain the levels that we need to. So you see, if you're able to convert and then be on a spiritual elevation on a regular basis and constantly toil to improve yourself, certainly convert as soon as possible. On the other hand, if you can't, still, you have a lot of work to do to improve yourself, but be very careful of the things that I mentioned. If you're a Jew, if you haven't already got on the right road, get on it as soon as possible. Why? Because you're running out of time. Hashem is not going to wait for you forever. Before Mashiach comes, everyone will have to make a choice. You'll either turn into being completely righteous or completely wicked. You're making that choice now. Be'ezrat Hashem, each one of us will have the necessary spiritual strength to make the right choices. Because the reward for making those right choices is unlike any other. To finish off, I'll tell you a story.